What up, everybody? Welcome to Coshun Cast. Craig Coshun, along with producer extraordinaire James Stewart on January 4th. It is a Tuesday. We're into the new year. So happy New Year, everybody. And boy, we've made it, James. We crossed that crossed that threshold, man. We're like 2 years in the making right now.
We made it through 2021 and now on to 2022, and just hoping that it's a little bit better than 2021. Although sports-wise, 2021 was amazing because we got the championship. But, you know, personally in the whole world, like, we're ready to just move forward with all this.
I know it. We gotta get through this little stretch here. Yeah. So this is I think this is what makes what we do here to get through that time a little more enjoyable, and hopefully hopefully the people who watch and listen to us will agree for sure. But we've got a good slate of stuff here. We've got the Bucks were on a roll until they ran into a suddenly hot Detroit Pistons team. We're going to talk a little Packers clinching the number 1 seed for the NFC playoff run to the Super Bowl. We've also got some MVP talk in the state of Wisconsin. Suddenly, if you think about this, there's a dominant running line of consecutive years of MVPs in professional sports, which is kind of cool, and it looks like it's going to continue. And we've also got some talk on some college basketball players that are making a name for themselves as NBA lottery picks for 2022 right out of here, the good old state of Wisconsin. So
a lot of good things happening in Wisconsin.
We're looking forward to that.
Realize.
So now, but before we start, we always have to lead off the show and find out, you know, how you're doing, because I've made it through my rough life of kids and all that kind of stuff. But I think maybe yesterday for you and for a lot of us really felt like the first true Monday in like a month, like back to work type Monday. What was it like in the James household for you on Monday?
Well, for me, it's twofold. So yesterday, obviously, the first Monday, we had a game. So that was kind of my focus there, just focusing on that Pistons matchup. But today was, for me, back to fatherly duties. And I feel like I was spoiled during the little Christmas break here, because my kids getting up that early was not fun. And it was pretty hard to get both the kids on to school on time today.
What are we talking about? So 6 a.m. is that like when you guys are getting up now?
Yeah, they usually get up around 6:30, somewhere in there. But my wife's not gonna like this, but I definitely hit the snooze. I have to leave by 7:30 to get Jay to school. I hit the snooze until 7:20. So. Whoa! Yeah, we were eating out the door today, so it was a rough one.
Did you what'd you have there real quick for eats?
We had a piece of toast and some goldfish.
Like a goldfish sandwich?
Yeah, not my best day for dad duties today. But we made it. Hey, they're at school on time. Everything's fine.
All right. Well, that's all that matters at this point. Kids are young. They'll survive.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little Bucks basketball here. On Monday, Bucks had a 6-game winning streak going into their game against Detroit, which had won a total of 6 games all season. But they were coming off a win over San Antonio on Saturday night. So believe it or not, they got their second straight win for the first time all season long, and it came at the expense of the Bucks, who, by the way, had their big 3. So this was an anomaly rarity loss for a team that was really, really playing well. This seemed like a Monday thumper, to say the least.
I mean, to me, like, obviously you can't just wash it away and say nothing happened. They lost to a very bad team, a 6-win team, now a 7-win team, I guess. But for me, the takeaway is you look at the tape, see what you can do better, and you move on. There's not too much to kind of harp on this loss for me. I always think about it like I remember when we won 15 games, and the fact is we were bad, but 15 times there was a team that was worse. So it just happens. I mean, you look at like the Warriors 24. Remember when they were 24-0 and they lost to us?
Yeah.
It just happens. It's the NBA. Like all of these guys are still incredible players, and we saw last night Saddiq Bey went off, and he's been having a good stretch. But no matter how bad the Pistons are, you always have to remember, like at some point, and probably for a very long time, Saddiq Bey was the best player around. Wherever he was, high school, at some point to college, he was the best player on his team. And now, you know what I mean? Like all these guys, we take. I think sometimes we we ignore the fact that like the worst player in the NBA is still better than any basketball player you personally know.
True.
Like, you know what I mean? And I believe it was, who's the guy for the Celtics? Scalabrini.
Yeah.
He had that he had as a quote about because he's a big social media guy, so he interacts with the fans a lot and goes back and forth. But he had a quote basically saying that like he's closer to Jordan than you are to him. So if you just kind of remember that, like you have to understand that, again, these are all NBA players and it just happens. And, last night we talked about it on post game when, who was it? Hill, Giannis, Middleton, and Grayson Allen were like 2 for 23 from three.
Yeah.
That's just, you're not going to win a lot of games like that. And you just chalk it up as an off night because Grayson's shooting 40%. Middleton has shot 40%. All these guys are outside of Giannis are high 40% shooters, and you just call it an off night, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was an off night. I mean, the stats never lie.
Right.
I mean,
and George Hill too. George Hill was near the top of the league in 3-point at one point. So it's not just, it's just an off night to me. Now you can't let it ride into Toronto. Like you have to bounce back against Toronto, which is a better team. But what are you going to do about it? We saw that game, and it just felt like every time the Bucks made a run, that run was to get back to even. It was never to like take the lead. And it just, you let a team hang around and get that confidence all game, and you saw like Saddiq Bey, man, he had a night. Career high, like
he did, yeah. And I look no further on these stats, James, when we talked about 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
And this is where the Bucks are right now, and this would be probably speak true on how 3-point shooting is in the NBA right now. Last night the Bucks for the 3-ball 11 for 46.
Yeah.
11 for 46, and Bey and Josh Jackson combined for more made threes for Detroit than the Bucks team did, which is like hard to believe that could happen. But 11 for 46 in their game on Monday. The previous game, they're 23 for 48. So you're talking about 12 more made threes between winning and losing. Now, does it take that much? Of course it doesn't. No. But when you're only making 11 and you're shooting nearly 50 threes, it's hard to overcome no matter who you are. And again, the big three played for the Bucks. Bobby Portis played for the Bucks.
Yep.
They were relatively healthy going into that game. And it just goes to show, I think, how important the 3-ball is right now, because if you hit 5 or 6 more threes than you missed in this loss against Detroit, it doesn't guarantee you're going to win.
No.
But it puts you in a spot where you can do some other things and be that much more closer to winning and saying, you know what, we're better than you. This is how we're going to get it done. Lower the hammer in the final minute and win the game. They were close in the final minute, but they just couldn't overcome it.
Yeah, and like you said, 11 for 46. So you shoot almost 50 threes, and you shoot 23%. Like, I don't pick any shot on the court. If you shoot 23%, it's going to be a hard time to win, and to me, like Pat 1 for 4. I mean, he only took 5 shots, but I don't know what is surprising to me, I guess, with Drew, Giannis, Bobby, Chris on the floor, it's surprising to me that Grayson got up 8 threes. I
Yeah.
don't think that, to me, I think his usage is probably more around the 4 or 5. And then you just kind of see how many he hits. But it just seemed like every time Giannis was out of the game, there was no really interior play. And it was just all shooting on a night where they're not shooting well, you know? And you just have to remember that the NBA today is about shooting threes. And we've said it so many times, let it fly, let it fly, let it fly. Some nights it's gonna burn you. It just is what it is.
I think the thing, with Grayson Allen, when the big three came back and got healthy and the team got healthy and Portis came back, it was interesting that his attempts were almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And this is a guy, we know what he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
And he can't fill it up every night, and that's not what he gets paid to do. That's not who he is as a player. But when he does shoot, it's more than likely going to be a three. So I thought the number of threes that he put up yesterday were probably on course, because he's got to be part of the offense.
Yeah.
And he's not going to do it inside much. I mean, that's just not where they have him. So I'm okay with him shooting 6 or 7 or 8 threes a game. I mean, if he makes 3 or maybe even 4, that's great. But I mean, he's had games where he's made 5, 6, 7, right, multiple times. And you can't make that unless you shoot them. So unless you attempt them. So it's just, I don't know. I look at this and I don't want to harp on this loss. That's not part of it. I just think it really stands out when I mean, you look on social media after the game, last night, there are angry Bucks fans because no one out there in Bucks Nation thinks they should ever lose to the Detroit Pistons, especially when they have their All-Stars there and they're playing at full strength. But the success of the three, one way or the other, the only way you can compete is to have a happy medium between the numbers that we're talking about right now. So, and then speaking of threes, Toronto's coming to town on Wednesday night. You can't think of Toronto without thinking of Fred VanVleet. Mm-hmm. And he's going to put up probably anywhere from 10 to 15 threes. And he's more than capable of making 6, 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 a game. So, the advantage I think the Bucks have going into that one is tonight Toronto's at home against San Antonio, so they have to play tonight, fly out, and come into Milwaukee for the second of back-to-backs on the road, which is never easy to do. And then they're going up against and they're going up against the Bucks, who obviously are going to be hungry to get back on track, and they go on the road later this week to take on Brooklyn. So it's a busy week, tough way to start out with a loss against Detroit, but obviously they're in position to regroup here. That's for sure. Yeah.
The one of the positives I'm going to take away from this game, though, is that coming off of that the Pelicans game, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that, but coming off the Pelicans game where Giannis had the 10 assists all on threes, you still saw this game. Even toward the end of the game when the things weren't going well, he was still kicking out for threes. So he's still playing the right way. You did see a little more aggression, a little more forcing toward the rim for him. But I'm just going to take away that regardless of what happens or what a single game outcome is, he still trusts his team. He still plans to play the right way. And you look at his numbers, he had 31, 10, and 7 assists. So if you take that 7 assists and you tell me that they shot 23% from 3, he was clearly moving the ball.
Yeah.
And it probably should have been easily double-figure assists.
Yeah.
We should have been looking at another triple-double.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. And the other thing about it is, the other thing that I know we want to talk about here too, and you mentioned the Saturday night performance on the 10 assists that he had. and they were all on 3-pointers.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been confirmed or not because I haven't seen it, but no one believes that's ever been done in NBA history. And I'm sure somebody has an answer now on that, but we know it's rare.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But what it did
Especially
was, according to NBA.com, it catapulted Giannis to the favorite right now, the number 1 slot, to be the league's most valuable player again, which he's shooting for a third title at just turned 27 years old.
Yeah.
Let's face it, you got KD, you got Curry, Jokic, Gobert. They're your top 5 with Giannis here right now. And the MVP talk, we've turned the calendar year now. It's January. People are getting serious about the NBA again. This is about the time they do Christmas, holidays into the new year here, and he just continues to up his level. I think the most enjoyable thing about talking about Giannis's game is you're never talking about the same thing, it seems like, with all his accomplishments and accolades, because what he did with assisting those 10 assists for threes, who would have ever thought that it would come down to such a precise part of the offense, and to be able to have these guys pull this off. 9 different players hit threes in that game the other day. I mean, that's pretty good stuff right there.
Well, and on top of that, like what do you have, 35 points?
Yeah.
So, I mean, on top of that, the 35 points and then kicking out for all threes, I would be shocked if he only passed to 10 threes and they made all 10 threes, right?
Right.
So let's just say 15. He passed it out to 15 different threes. I'm just guessing. But to still be able to get 35 on top of that for a guy who's not a three-point shooter, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it also shows a crazy usage, but it's that is the definition of dominance, I think. I'm going to score my 35, and whenever you guys make it just a little bit difficult and make a mistake, I'm going to hit it out there for those guys that hit a three. Like, it's just, you can see he's growing, still growing so much. Which is kind of crazy to say a 2-time MVP is still growing, but I feel like we see something new every day. And I'm looking at like the MVP ladder or whatever, and you kind of just look at the 3 stats that they give you, which is generally points, rebounds, and assists. For Gobert, they throw in blocks. But like even him and KD, like KD's outscoring him, but
Giannis not by a ton though.
Yeah, by 2 points.
Yeah.
And Giannis is out rebounding him by 4. And then their assists are even. So it all just like depends on. That's the tough part with the MVP, because to me, I would say that Giannis's numbers are better. But it all comes down to the story and team success and all that stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bulls hang up there much longer, that we start seeing DeRozan in this top 5 MVP, because he's obviously playing very well right now. And the Bulls are, I believe they're number 1, right now.
I think so. Yeah, they're ahead of the Bucks, and the Bucks were right there going into that one. So there's
still a lot of time, and there's still going to be a lot of movement.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But just at any point to know that he's on top of it, the way that he plays wouldn't shock me if he stays on top of it. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those guys that the consistency is there. It's not just, even in a loss like last night, in a game that we're saying was a bad game, let's throw it away, he still had 31, 10, and 7. So the numbers are always going to be there.
Yeah, and he's let's face it, as far as all the things for an MVP goes, you can look at all the stats and numbers you want. I mean, the other bottom line is this team, his teammates are better because of him.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. So they found the right fits, that's for sure. But the other thing is you talk about MVP, the Allstar, candidates or whatever are out there, and we got a kick out of Bobby Portis kind of announcing like he's the presidential candidate instead of
Yeah.
Portis. It was POTUS. And I love how this guy just puts himself out there. We covered it on our pregame show yesterday a little bit, just, from the standpoint of there are certain guys who can self-promote themselves, especially when they have a crowd base here in Milwaukee that is behind him. So
Yeah.
part of this is fan voting. And, around the country, I don't know if he's going to get even close to a vote to put him over the top, but I have a feeling the fans in the city of Milwaukee are going to do their best to put him in a pretty good spot to make his name visible,
Yeah.
and put him in a spot of contention. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And quite frankly, he's playing at an all-star level. I don't know if the numbers equal, and there's only going to be 12 guys on a team. We know that. That's the tough part. But, he's elevated his game, and Giannis has something to do with that too, going back to the MVP talk.
And if you haven't seen it, here is his here's his little ad he put out in Twitter. Breaking news from the desk of Bobby POTUS.
Yeah.
My fellow NBA fans, I'm officially launching my campaign for All-Star 2022 and asking for your vote, which to me, I love it. I love it because to me, Bobby Portis is my second favorite Buck. And the reason is he plays well and plays hard, but he is emotionally and kind of entertainment wise, he's like the opposite of Giannis. He is the expressive one. He is the one that has fun and is running up and down the court. Not that Giannis doesn't have fun. We see the celebrations after dunks and threes and whatnot. But Bobby is kind of like a different level for me, and I love it. I think I'm trying to remember if we've kind of had a guy like that, kind of a fiery, outward expressive. The fans are just in love with it. And you mentioned it on the broadcast, like if anyone's going to get the fan vote in Milwaukee, it's going to be Giannis and then Bobby.
Yeah.
Like Bobby is definitely a fan favorite, and it should give him a chance, but ultimately he's not going to be a starter, right? So it's going to be down to the coaches. But you hope he's nearing a double-double with 15 points, nearing 10 rebounds, shooting crazy from three, and the Bucks are going up in the standings, so that all helps. Generally, the number one team has at least two guys. So you see Drew's had a push this last couple weeks. I don't see anything from Middleton at this point. I think there's just been too much missed time, and that also plays into Bobby though. Like we think about the guys that we've missed. All these other guys have missed time too. Big names. We've had KD, Giannis, Bobby. All these guys have been in health and safety protocols. So maybe this is the year that it works out that enough guys miss time to get a shot at an All-Star. Some people might look at that as like, you got in on a technicality, but at the end of the day, like it's about getting in, and it doesn't really matter how you got in. You don't worry about anyone else's season and who was hurt and this and that. You just get in. Right.
And I mean, let's face it. I agree with you in the verbiage you use for, you can get in on a technicality, but can you really though, when there's only 12 guys on each team? I mean, I still think that's wrong for the NBA.
Right.
I mean, there's got to be, in my opinion, I think you need at least 15 guys.
Yeah, even 15. That's 6 more guys on each team. Like
you really do. I mean, there's no. I mean, even if you just subbed in 5 at a time, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely more worthy all-stars than the 12 that they've been putting out there the last couple of years.
And the frustrating part about it is like someone like Klay Thompson is I want to say like top 10 in voting right now, and you're just like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember way back when it didn't matter what Yao Ming did. All of China was voting for him, so he was getting in. You know what I mean? It's just you do want the fan vote, but you also have to understand that, like, for example, with Bobby, all of Milwaukee's going to vote for him. So it almost feels like if I wish there was a way that we could still use the fan vote, but maybe take a percentage from each state or something like that to make it more of a league-wide fan vote as opposed to whose city decides to push it harder,
Right.
Because it obviously a team like Milwaukee is going to have a bigger following than maybe the Cavs. So maybe Darius Garland doesn't have the fan push behind him that Drew does, and that's always unfortunate. But the good thing is it's only 50% of the vote, and the coaches and media usually kind of balance it out. But it would be cool to see Bobby in there, and I think he's earned it. And I think Bobby is obviously one of my favorite people to talk about just because of the whole story to him. And I've talked about it, numerous times about he's basically taken 2 team-friendly contracts, and I don't think anyone could argue that he hasn't outplayed them. You'd be a fool to argue that he's kind of slotted money-wise where he deserves to be. And you wonder how long a guy can be team-friendly for. I know that he's said it a lot, that this has kind of turned around his career and et cetera, but at some point, right, the career's turned around, so you move on. So hopefully they can keep him around, and hopefully he can get an All-Star and really still maybe that's what he needs. Milwaukee needs to come out and make sure that he makes the All-Star team, and then maybe he'll take another team-friendly. Maybe he'll love it here so much.
Well, I will say this: he's won a championship already. Yeah. So a lot of times, if you're young, like he still is, you win a championship. That's like your first big accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And then if you win another championship, let's say he's not an All-Star this year, but the Bucks win another championship, he will be noticed. And if he continues to elevate his game and then he hits his prime, he will be making his money. There's no, and it may come as a Milwaukee Buck. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that as long as his game continues, to rise and get better the way we've seen and stuff. So
it's kind of like a double-edged sword because, going into the season, we talked about, can Bobby be sixth man? Like if he plays the way he played last year, he could be the sixth man. But now he's a starter, all but game 1. So the sixth man's out of the question because we don't know when Brooks coming back. But if you're a starter the entire season of a championship team, there's no team friendly there.
Right.
You will be noticed.
Yeah. Let's talk about MVP candidates now. Take it a step further from the Giannis League talk. This is we were talking about this yesterday during the game. James and I were about Wisconsin-based MVPs in pro sports in the 3 big majors in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. And if you think about this, Aaron Rodgers has emerged as the favorite in the NFL, and Giannis has emerged as the favorite right now in the NBA. So you would think we have a pretty good shot at 1, maybe 2 MVPs here in this 2022 naming rights year. Rodgers won it last year in a tie in 21. Giannis won in 2020 and in 2019 in the NBA, and Christian Yelich won the National League MVP in Major League Baseball in 2018. So we're looking at 5 consecutive seasons out of the state of Wisconsin as league MVPs. And that's look, when Yelich won it in 18 and Giannis won it that adjoining following year, we're like, man, we got back-to-backs here, and Rodgers had already won 2 prior to that. This is pretty cool stuff here right now. And all of these guys have a stake in not just winning these things and being candidates, but have a stake in their communities, cross ownerships. This is really amazing to see that Rodgers and Giannis could win this in the same year.
and to me, like as a Wisconsin sports fan, you really gotta stick your chest out, because I think that like we follow these teams so closely that, like for the Brewers example, for example, the end of the year was a disappointment, right? You're frustrated. You're just waiting for this team to break through. But when you look at the big picture of Wisconsin sports, there is something pretty special going on, and I don't know where this lands like throughout the country and all the other teams, but to know that the last 5 years and hopefully this year you've had an MVP in your state in one of the three major sports, that's pretty cool, like, and then on top of that, outside of this last offseason with Rodgers, there's really been no drama with our stars. Obviously, this last offseason with Rodgers was a little bit rocky, but they all kind of, and like you were saying, there's ownership stakes in all of them. Like Rodgers is involved with the Bucks, Giannis involved with the Brewers. There really is this like small town community feel to our major sports in the way that they seemingly get along and interact with each other, which is really cool. And you always see, and I know this is common, but you always see the Bucks or the Packers or the Brewers congratulating one another, and you see them at each other's games and stuff. So it's just kind of cool. And I do wonder if that's how it is around the country, but I know it hasn't been like that here in the past. So to have the 5 MVPs in a row, to always have something to celebrate and kind of hang your hat on as a state is really cool.
It just reminds me of the, Anthony Davis being a Packer fan, and instead of maybe a, Rams fan or Chargers fan now, out there in LA and stuff. But I also want to mention, you mentioned the cross ownerships, that Rodgers has a stake in the Bucks and Giannis has a stake in the Brewers. Yelich, to our knowledge, doesn't have that cross piece of ownership, but he does have financial interest in redevelopment of this Milwaukee downtown, which to me speaks equal volumes, if not stronger, to be honest with you. Investing money to make this a better community, and I think that's that was something that's been on top of his list for a few years now.
Yeah.
So
we can't. To me, we can't talk about that stuff enough, because I think sometimes fans need to understand too that like when these guys are here and they're bought in, like that's special. That's important. Like there's a lot of stars that play on teams that don't care about the city, don't get involved, show up, do what they do, and then go home. Wait for their next contract or whatever. Like the fact that these guys are actually in the community, and for the most part, I would guess that most players, are in the community in some form or fashion, just because of the team kind of having, that responsibility. But to kind of take it one step further and put your own money into the equation tells me like you're bought in and you want to see change and be here and develop. And not that they couldn't do that from another team, but it's just kind of cool to know there is something that anchors Giannis to Milwaukee. There's something that anchors Aaron Rodgers to Milwaukee. You know what I mean? In some way or fashion, there's always that one big financial reason to stay around and see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is cool.
I want to, before we talk Packers going into their final week and playoffs, as long as we're on MVP type talk, I want to bring this up, James, because on Monday night, Johnny Davis of the Badger basketball team, they're ranked 23rd, and they had a big road game at number 3 ranked Purdue. And this Purdue team a couple of weeks ago was ranked number 1 in the country. This is a very good, solid team. I watched them for the first time. I recorded the game and came back after the Bucks game last night and watched this game, and could not have been more impressed with what I saw of several players on the Purdue side. I mean, they've got this balance that's unbelievable. However, the guy that stole the show was lacrosse's very own Johnny Davis. And if you follow Badger basketball, like I know some of our listeners and watchers have, you know who this guy is. You know how he's emerged his sophomore year. He had 37 points and 14 rebounds in that win last night, and hit every clutch shot, hit threes, showed his high IQ, finding teammates, making good decisions, and basically, put his Badger backpack on and put all his teammates in. And that's a hell of a road victory. So congrats to the Badgers for that. Now, the reason I bring this up is because this guy has clearly emerged as a potential lottery pick in the draft coming up later this year in 2022. And after, going into this year, you knew he was going to be good and better, but you're like, how is this? You're thinking of another kid from the state of Wisconsin, Patrick Baldwin Jr., who played high school here in Milwaukee and then decided to follow his dad as the head coach at UW Milwaukee. So he's playing here his freshman year as being a lottery pick as well. So think about this. We have potentially 2 lottery picks playing right here for the UW Wisconsin system, which would be a story in itself.
Yeah.
But James, how they're getting here, the path they're taking is what I want to talk about. Johnny Davis kind of doing that traditional high school player of the year, going to his hometown state school and the Badgers, and emerging after his freshman year, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. being pretty much a lottery pick, probably from the age 16.
Right.
Could have gone to Duke, Kentucky, wherever he wanted to go to school, and says, you know what, I'm going to be a one and done. I'm going to go play basketball for my dad, which everyone's like, that's the greatest storyline ever. So these are interesting. I want to call them stages.
Yeah.
Because I think the stage that Johnny Davis is on, he's playing in the Big Ten. He's playing for the Badgers. They're nationally ranked. They're on national TV all the time. And Patrick Baldwin Jr. decided to play on a flat surface in front of fans that are still on that flat surface and can barely see him play.
Yeah.
But yet, when he's healthy, he's a very good basketball player. It's just very interesting to see how these storylines are playing out as these guys have their eyes on the NBA.
One of the interesting things to me is that we're talking about 2 potentially not one and done, because I guess he's in his sophomore year, but 2 potentially lottery picks, and they're from Wisconsin and Milwaukee, not necessarily Marquette. Like, Marquette is the one that I in my head picture as a more one and done friendly system.
I would agree with that,
because we know Wisconsin's kind of mantra is about the team, not about a guy. And UW Milwaukee just doesn't have the visibility. It's a really cool story for him to go back and play for his dad. I really hope that it all works out, not only just for him, but for kind of future smaller D1 school moves. I guess I could kind of compare it to Deion Sanders getting the guy, the number 1, I think it was number 2 overall recruit to come to his school, the HBCU, which, obviously we know HBCUs don't generally get top 5 players. And if that works out, if he turns out to be the number 2 player and the number 2 defensive player in the country, or whatever it is, hopefully that'll kind of lead a line to these future kids, knowing that you don't have to go to Duke, you don't have to go to Alabama, you don't have to go and sit behind 3 5-star quarterbacks and just wait your turn for your senior year when you could have been a 4-year starter anywhere else.
Right.
And hopefully that kind of brings a little more parity to college sports, because if these guys do know that they can go where they want to go and still make it to the pros, hopefully that opens it up a bit. Because we know, like, we look back and say like Tyler Hero, for example. That was a clear choice of leaving Wisconsin and going to play with Calipari. It was a clear choice. I want to go to the NBA, and this guy will get me to the NBA. So hopefully, these guys that are taking these different routes and hopefully can make it to the pros can kind of leave a blueprint to these other guys that go where you want to go. Go where the fit is right.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just I got to go to Duke or I got to go to Alabama. I got to go play at Kentucky. It's the only way that I can get enough visibility to get to the pros. And that is changing a lot with the internet, but still, we still haven't seen that major star pick his hometown small school or whatever,
Right. No, it makes a great storyline, and I mean, look no further than Jalen Johnson. He was playing high school basketball in Sun Prairie, then he came to Milwaukee. Thought there was a better situation for him, visibility wise and competition wise. He ends up going to Duke and starting for the first month, and then basically didn't play after that, and didn't even finish with the program. And he's kind of lost with the Hawks now. I mean, that could have been a potential step back, but anyway, we could get real deep in that.
Yeah.
and I really don't want to do anything but put Johnny Davis and Patrick Baldwin Jr. on a good platform.
Yeah, they definitely deserve the praise and all the because it is still like it again. Wisconsin-born talent. Like whenever Wisconsin-born talent succeeds, like Wisconsin needs to get behind it.
Right.
Every time.
And you got to give both these guys credit for saying, I want to stay here. Yeah. And they had different reasons to stay here on different teams. And
that's kind of the other speaking of reasons, that's why Deion Sanders getting that number 2 recruit to come to an HBU is so big, because we know the money follows talent. And we know that in college sports, the money is just not equal, especially not with these which I'm all for and happy for, but the kids being able to make money off their likeness, that's even another kind of separator of where do you think you're going to make more money? Duke or UW Milwaukee?
Right.
Like, it's kind of like, so hopefully we can get a few of these kids that just are game changers to go to these smaller schools and get that money flowing in other directions other than how many times do we need to see the Alabamas and the Dukes of the world? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's turn our attention to Packers real quick here to close out. I don't have a ton on my list for Packers other than they clinched the number 1 seed, and I think they did it a week earlier than everyone thought when Arizona beat Dallas. It opened the door for them. Kirk Cousins doesn't play Sunday night. That opened the door for them. And what did they do? They demolished the Vikings in a game that really seemed like it had no meaning, but it set up number 1 seed for them now to stay at home for the playoffs and get the only bye available as the playoff system expands right now. So kudos to them for that. The big question is this: they finish the regular season Sunday coming up here, and then they get the bye, so they won't play their first playoff game until the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd of January. So the big question is how much, if at all, do you play your frontline guys in this game against Detroit, of course, doing nothing else but risking injury?
I mean, with the bye, I think you got to run them out there for at least a half, just because of the fact that you have the bye, and you don't want them sitting for 2 weeks. But you play to get them out of the game. You know what I mean? Like, this game doesn't matter. It's against Detroit, and it should be a win. I wouldn't be shocked if Rodgers barely plays and it happens to be a loss with Jordan Love. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think you just want to get your guys in some game action, get them out, and rest up for the week and get ready for the playoffs. Especially with it being, is that a home game?
Sunday, no. It's at Detroit.
Well, either way, like
At least it's indoors.
Yeah.
At least it's indoors, you know. So
that was kind of my thought. If it was a home game, like you want to get them out there and moving in the cold, but you know, with it being indoors, either way, you still want your guys moving for you don't want them sitting for 2 weeks. I wouldn't think.
Well, I wouldn't either. And it seems like head coach Matt LaFleur said, you know, after the game on Sunday, you know, that's his game plan of playing these guys. I mean, he didn't reveal how much yet, but
yeah,
it almost sounded like his frontline guys are going to play, you know, the first half of the game, which I mean, initially I'm thinking that's the right thing to do. I mean, look, these guys have a bye though at some point, and there's never a worry about not playing, you know, for a full weekend and, you know, in between games. However, it also stresses the importance of you need to be at the top of your game, full speed, mentally ready to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play a single game or minute of the preseason. But that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what we're talking about. And obviously the Packers got it handed to them the first game of the year and stuff. And that's kind of when you work out the kinks. You can't afford to do that now, you know, during playoff time here. So it'll be something to watch on Sunday, a meaningless type game. But of course, everyone will be watching either way, and the playoffs start. So exciting times coming up. So I think that's going to do it. You got anything else?
No, just want to wish everyone a happy new year and hope for a good 2022. Hope for another pair of MVPs.
Right on.
So we can make it, 7 in 5 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't do that.
Either way,
it would be 5 years in a row.
Another consecutive year of MVPs would be nice.
Why do you test me like this?
It would be 6 in 5 years, because this would be the first year that potentially they had 2.
I think I hear kids calling. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. They just got home.
All right, pal. Nice show. Nice stuff. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. This has been the latest edition of Coshun Cast. We'll see you next time.
All right.